Welcome back to Real Turbo Buicks. So it's been a while since I made a full update on the project of what's going on with my car. And the last we had been on the channel for an update was actually at Bowling Green at the GS Nationals. And let's start off with that because the last video that I made, we were still at and racing at the GS Nationals. So one thing that happened was that I'm using a bump box for my car when I stage, and it was just a little too violent. And how you actually set it up is a little different because you can set it up here like on this concrete pad right now. You tune it, but then when you actually get on the actual track and the starting line, it can actually be a little different. So it was too harsh. So when I was pre-staged and I would hit the bump box, it would go too far and actually go past the stage beam and start the timer. So Bowling Green was kind of a wash for me. So then we made a couple passes at my local track at Quaker City in Salem, Ohio. Now, they only had 8th mile racing that day, but I was able to get some decent data here. So I made a total of 3 passes. Now, the first 2 passes really started indicating that the car just was not driving into third gear well. To me, I've had that before where it just to me was like the converters is slipping, it's too loose. And when I was logging input shaft speed, we were seeing quite a bit of slippage, as much as 27% when it goes into third gear. And that's what I kind of felt where it just would when it would shift, it would shift down to 6,100 and it just wasn't going anywhere. And we actually cranked up the boost on the third pass and commanded 33 pounds of boost. And it made 33 pounds of boost, but it just didn't pick up any power at all. It kind of stayed exactly where it was. And the 8th mile times was right around in the 6.1 range. That's nowhere where this car should be. So we started looking at different things, picking them one step at a time here. So I was running, a PTC 9.5-inch non-lockup converter, and I called those guys and gave them the data, and then they sent me a revised converter to be able to put in the car. But also at the same time, I was looking at the valve springs, thinking that the valve springs might not be holding up. So we looked at the valve springs and we didn't really see anything that stood out there. So we decided just to replace them anyway, and then also put the new torque converter in the car, and then we actually just put it up on the dyno at injection connection. Power just was down overall on the dyno. It was nowhere near where we were. We were right around 950 at the tires on an actual hub dyno, and this was down, I would say, about 100 horsepower, and that's with 30 pounds of boost. So I knew something was going on, and in that motor that I had was only my temporary motor to get me by. And I'm really thinking that most likely, what I was experiencing in that motor was some type of a lifter bleed off issue where those lifters just were bleeding off boost. Because the valve springs were changed out, that was good. Something else just didn't look right. Compression was still good. We didn't hurt the motor at all. The tune-up was perfect. The plugs looked really good. So right around at the same time, I was so pleasantly surprised to hear that my main motor, my TA aluminum block, that's my motor, was actually completed. So at that point, I decided, well, okay, I'm just going to put my motor back in the car now and start going there, and we'll pull that out, we'll pull the backup out, and then we'll just go through that at that point. So, and again, and all this is happening in August, where it was just didn't make any sense to race at all, and we were just getting all that done. So we had all this going on at the same time. So I put the motor in with the new PTC torque converter in there, and right off the bat, this car is now completely, it's a different car. So I took it back to Kevin at TKM, and he retuned it for me. We were just going over everything to make sure everything looked good. And here's a video from that tuning session. So with that said, we're all good. Compression's good. The plugs all look good. And the motor seems to be pulling really, really good. And best of luck, when I'm looking at the input shaft speed now, at least on the dyno, it's very, very, very tight. It looks very, very good. And now also, but I was kind of worried that if I put a bit tighter converter in there, how would it come up on the brake with this larger PTC 7675 turbo? So to my surprise, it actually spools very fast. So now I have a car, and now we're ready to go make some passes. So we had, toward the end of October here, we had some downtime and some decent weather that we were able to go out and make some passes. So with that said, I started out on Friday night at my local track at Keystone Raceway Park. And again, they were only doing 8th mile racing that day, but then we went out there and saw what we had. So this is the first 2 passes that I made. So the car is hooking very well, and it's also going very straight. The first pass was at 25 pounds of boost, and the car is just leaving very straight, very good. And my surprise, the 60 foot was better than I anticipated. So we came back on a second one. We upped the boost by 2 to go to 27 pounds. And then also we just brought in the curve on the boost curve, just brought it in sooner because it was taking it very well. And here is the second pass. So on the second pass, I noticed that the transmission line pressure was dropping down on the launch. And when I got done with the pass, I saw that the transmission fluid was a little low. It wasn't even into the asterisks into there. So I'm thinking that it's probably cavitating on the launch. But also I had another important, now that I'm making a little more boost, we're having some issues with the vacuum system where it's pressurizing it so much that it's just starting to come out any orifice that it can, because it's so the crankcase pressure is just so much. So what I had for my system was coming out of the valve covers with a -10 line into this vibrant catch can right here. And I'll give you some close-ups of this. This really does not have a very large diameter for the breathing aspect. So I'm thinking that, that was not happening the motor was not very happy with this type of setup. So we had we had some work cut out for us now. And so we had an opportunity where on the next day, the Saturday, was a very nice day for racing. And it's the end of October. And I might not get another shot here of making another pass. So I thought about this overnight, and I came up with a plan to attack the very next morning. Dragway 42 in Ohio had test and tune all day. So what I did was I got up early and I went to Summit, and I got a couple things here just to help the band-aid what I was seeing here. So what I did was I basically just disconnected the vibrant system and the lines go into my can here, and I got a couple small K&N breathers just to put on top of the valve covers. And we went out and made a couple passes. So on the first pass, it was going very, very well. 27 pounds of boost, and I'll show you the pass now. Looked really good here. 9.1 at almost about 154 miles an hour. So everything is looking good on as far as the converter is tight and it's very efficient up the top, and the mile an hour is showing that. So the only thing though is on that pass, I didn't have my line pressure drop down because I put more fluid in there, but I filled it all the way up to the top of the fill line, but it started coming out the top of the transmission. At the very top of the transmission is an overflow tube, and the transmission fluid was starting to come out at the top and put not a tremendous amount of fluid down back on the car or the track, but it was putting enough to make it concerning. I drained out 2 quarts of oil to go right where it was still the asterisk, but it was a little low. And then I turned up the boost to 30 pounds on the wastegate. And that's, and I also brought in the boost a little faster. So here is that pass. All right, so with that said, 886 at 155, and I did weigh the car after that run. And the car as it sits now weighs 3740 with me in the car. So at 3740, it went 886 at 155 miles an hour. So 2 things started happening here. The pressure started dropping down again, and it lost just it didn't seem to really affect the pass though, but the pressure dropped back down. So there's definitely something in the transmission with the line pressure and the pump that there's a problem with the transmission. And we also then, on that pass, now we're starting to run out of fuel. So at 30 pounds of boost, my fuel pressure dropped down. And I did experience this once on the last pass on the chassis dyno as well, but I wasn't sure if it was going to actually convert over to at the track. Now, to prevent me from anything happening with the motor, Kevin Mullins put some nice safeties built into there for fuel pressure so that if fuel pressure drops down, the boost drops down as well. So on that pass, but between first and second gear, it did, that's what happened. It got up to about close to 30 pounds. So it was like 29.5 pounds of boost. Fuel pressure started dropping down, and then it kicked down the boost as well down to about 23 pounds of boost. So with that said, and also the data really showed me the track could have taken more. The boost still could have come in a lot even faster. So there is no doubt that the car as it sits is an 860 car at 157, 158 miles an hour. I completely believe that without adding more boost to that. And the data was still showing me that the intercooler was working really, really well. The inlet temperatures were not above 115 degrees. And all of the data just showed me that I can add more. The overall back pressure was really good. That indicated that the turbo still had a good amount more in there. And in my opinion, this probably can take 33 pounds, maybe 34 pounds without any problems before I start getting into back pressure. So my opinion is there's a lot more in the car if I ever want to go down that route. So, and that now is leading us to why we're right here, and that'll take us into the next video. So thanks again for watching here, and take a look at the next video.